When we first adopted Slugger, he had an initial fear of the car. He was very reluctant to get in, and once he was in the car, he would pace back and forth and bark incessantly, making the ride pretty miserable for everybody. We also had a great concern that if we took him someplace by car that was out of our walking distance, that we might not be able to get him back in the car to get home. As troublesome and time-consuming as that was, we knew that eventually he would get in the car. Until one day, after getting in the car, his tail was accidentally closed in the door. Thankfully, there was no injury, but it scared him enough that he now totally refused to even go near the car. And so, starting from scratch, we approached the problem systematically. We broke the problem down into two parts. The first part was simply getting in the car, and the second part was riding peacefully and quietly. Starting from scratch, we recognized that Slugger's threshold for distance from the car was about 8 feet or so from the open door, and that's where we began. Any orientation towards the car or movement towards the car resulted in a click and a treat. The treats are delivered way behind him, so he actually had to move further away from the car to get them. This not only provided the food as a reinforcer, but also provided the functional reinforcer of distance from the car, which is what he really wanted. We worked in many short sessions, and Slugger got lots of breaks. This resulted in his willingness to come closer and closer to the car on his own without being lured. At this point, he is comfortable enough to stand outside the open door of the car, but still not comfortable enough to enter the car. Slugger is not tethered or leashed, and he has the opportunity to opt out of the training session if he needs to. But the fact that he keeps coming back to continue to play the training game tells me that he's comfortable enough and not feeling terribly stressed with the work. At some point, he does go off and sniff along the fence and sniff at the ground, which could either be stress-reducing behaviors, if he is feeling a little stressed, or it could simply be that there's something really interesting and smelly along the ground and near the fence. Either way, he always has the chance to opt out if he needs to, or take a break and walk away. After a couple more training sessions, Slugger is now comfortable enough to actually eat treats off the floor of the car, and I am still clicking and treating and delivering the treats away from the car, always giving him the chance to opt out and to get a little relief from the pressure of the scary car. Sometimes the way to jumpstart behavioral changes is to change the training environment totally so it looks different to the dog. Joe and Slugger walked down to the local school, and I followed up in the car. I met them and kept the door open, waiting to see what Slugger would do. You can see that Slugger's body language says that he is much more comfortable investigating the car. He even begins at one point to put his front feet in the car. I feel this is a really brave behavior on his point, so I click and continue to reinforce or deliver the treats outside of the car so that he really does get some relief from that extra pressure. I made a couple of judgment calls after that, waiting for him to enter the car again, and again reinforcing bravery. And then I reached into my toolkit and asked him to target my hand, which is a behavior that he really enjoys doing, which he did. At that point, I made another judgment call and delivered the treat to the back of the car.
Good job.
And that worked beautifully on getting him in the car.
Good boy. Yay.
We repeated these training sessions for the next 7 to 10 days. I drove to various locations in the neighborhood, always within walking distance, in case Slugger ever decided that he did not want to enter the car. We wanted to be sure that he could walk home. Our goal at this point was to simply have him enter and exit the car willingly. We did not want to ever have to lure him, forcibly pull him in the car, or lift him or coerce him. We wanted it to be his decision to enter and exit comfortably. Once we accomplished that, we knew our next problem would be to address the over-arousal and the insane barking in the car. We identified some of the triggers as oncoming traffic, particularly motorcycles or loud trucks. Also, people walking along the same side of the road or bicyclists on the same side of the road. I decided to train a quiet cue by using classical conditioning. So several times a day, I would simply pair up the word quiet with food.
Quiet. Quiet.
Now back to the car, we headed out to a place that had infrequent and random traffic. Over the next couple of weeks, we practiced in various locations without the car moving, using just classical counter conditioning until we saw that he was making the association between the triggers and the food. Over the next couple of weeks, we began to notice some really good changes. Instead of reacting to every car or anything moving in our direction, it now was only loud trucks or motorcycles, and still people and bicyclists walking along or moving along the same side of the road. The next step, of course, was to begin driving, which really had little impact on the progress that we made. He was still doing quite well, and we did have the occasional setback, but his recovery was really fast. At this point, I decided to implement my quiet cue. When we were riding along and I noticed that Slugger oriented towards a historically provocative trigger, such as an oncoming truck or motorcycle or something previously that he would have barked at, and he wasn't barking, I would say quiet, click and treat. From then on out, I put the quiet cue on a random schedule of reinforcement to maintain it. Fast forward several years, Slugger rides very well in the car and is quiet 99% of the time. However, he still will occasionally bark at a pedestrian or a bicyclist on the same side of the road, but it's a fast bark and a really quick recovery. He no longer reacts to any oncoming traffic, buses, motorcycles, or trucks, and we are really pleased with his progress.
Boy. Nice job.
Hi, it's Meg. If you've got this far, I thank you for indulging me and for your interest in how I achieved peace riding in the car with Slugger. It was really an interesting journey, but thankfully I think we've reached our goal and we continue to have some really nice, pleasant, peaceful, quiet car rides. So I have a couple extra thoughts and notes that I thought I would mention just to wrap up this video. Maybe you'll find them helpful. So when I was classically conditioning my quiet cue in the kitchen, out of context, I was using high value food like fish or chicken. However, when I applied the cue in the car, my thinking was to keep Slugger's arousal level a little lower, so I used kibble. I wanted him to just not be so aroused and over the top. He already was aroused. I thought maybe just dialing back the value of the food might help his arousal level come down. And for us, it worked. So it would be different, I guess, for every dog. Also, when I am teaching anything that requires increasing duration, I like to implement what I call a 2+2 problem. So rather than making every successive trial harder and harder, occasionally throw in an easily achievable goal. And I do this in a couple of ways. So one way is that I cue a really well-known and enjoyable behavior. So for Slugger, that's a hand target. He loves doing this, and it seems to give him a sense of, whew, that was easy. That's a 2+2 problem. I got this. Or at least that's how it appears to me. It looks like that's what he's experiencing. So, it also seems to jumpstart if we reach a kind of a temporary stall. Sometimes I'll just cue, again, maybe a hand target or a spin or something that he really does well and likes to do, and it gets us back into that behavioral momentum. So those are a couple ways that I use it. There is something else that I do as well, and that is I try not to always work in a linear fashion, making things increasingly more difficult all the time, as I've just mentioned. So say I'm working on a quiet in the car, and maybe I will cue a quiet and have a, say, 5-second quiet before I mark and reinforce. The next trial might be 10 seconds and the next one might be 20. But rather than continually making it harder and harder, the following one, the next one, might be a 3-second quiet before I mark and reinforce. So it's never always going to be harder and harder every time. Occasionally I just throw in that 2+2 problem. And it seems to make it easier, and I think it's a little less predictable. So again, this is something that just works for me. Something else that I discovered purely by accident, which was Slugger knows a chin rested towel, and I use that often as a start button for husbandry related procedures. So one day I noticed in the car that he was drooling kind of excessively in anticipation of the treat. So I took the towel out and I put it on the console next to me, and he immediately offered me a chin rest. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, can I use this? Is this something I might be able to use, in this kind of working through this problem with the barking in the car? So I have to say that I did use it a little bit and a couple of times, but I found overall I really didn't need that with the other things that we were doing. So, but he still will offer a chin rest as soon as I put a towel down for any reason, it's raining or whatever, in the car, he will offer me a chin rest. So, and I'm not unhappy about that. So, and lastly, regretfully, I did not keep really wonderful notes about our progress and how we worked through this and how much time I spent. But overall, I think it was really like a couple of months before I felt that we had made really significant progress. It was kind of really slow going in the beginning, as most things are. And then after that, it improved by leaps and bounds rather than inch by inch, although inch by inch is fine if that's what it takes. The dog gets to set the rules, not me. So I really want to thank you again for sticking with me through this whole process. And I do hope that you find something in this that might be of use to you. And if there's anything that you think that I could implement to make my job easier, or perhaps that would have worked for you, or you think would be useful for others, I would love to hear about it. The more tools we have, the better, and the more we can share things like this, the more we can help each other. So again, thank you so much. If your dog was watching this video with you or in the room with you this whole time and was quiet the entire time, you're a lucky girl, guy, person. Go give your dog a treat. And again, thank you so much for watching. Bye.